So welcome, everybody. This is the official beginning. We've already got underway with Money as a Democratic Medium. We're simply delighted to have you here. And by here, I mean Cambridge, I mean Hamburg, I mean online. We know you've traveled a long way, either physically or conceptually, right? On the ground or in the virtual world. And your presence is really the key. Your presence and participation is the key to the success of this conversation. So we're very happy to have you. We began this conversation in 2018. So the first Money as a Democratic Medium conference happened then, and we came together really trying to understand what had happened a decade before, in 2008. How had modes of money creation, how did the way we make money destabilize the world? What other effects did it have? How did those modes of money creation originate? How do we theorize them? How do they matter? How do they matter to the economy and to the society? And we operated at all levels, as we will again this time, right? So there was institutional analysis, there was policy, programmatic work, money design, history and theory, every angle, and we're very happy that you're here to do it with us again. So it seemed worth reconvening, we thought, in 2018. We thought, well, we'll reconvene in 2 years, maybe like spring of 2020. So COVID has changed the world in many ways. I'm just going to mention three, all of which make the stakes and the importance of reconvening more important. So first, COVID confirmed the unstable and unsettling nature of the modern financial architecture. That architecture was unable to digest an external shock, a big shock to be sure, but unable to digest an external shock to the system without a battery of support for large financial players as the agents of liquidity. So it brought that home to us yet again. Second, COVID demonstrated the global nature of the monetary architecture again. That is, a world knit together through the monetary circuitry. And the contagion, that is, was not just biological, right? It traveled through the monetary hardwiring that we need desperately to understand. That hardwiring deals out resources in the form of rescues, and deprivation in very broad strokes. And those strokes often disregard need and desert. We've already heard some of that in the panels. We'll revisit them in the Global Reverberations panel. Those strokes travel along paths as much determined by geopolitics as by justice and equity. Again, the first panel was a great example of that when we talked about the differences between Israel and Brazil in sovereign debt cases and monetary policy. Those strokes also create unanticipated effects at the global level. So second reason we saw, again, reinforced in COVID was the very global interconnectedness of the system. Finally, and in a register diametrically opposed to the global, we realized through COVID our deep-seated need for interaction, right? For intimacy, for collaboration, on the issues that confront us. COVID separated us literally. It left us with a renewed appreciation for the bonds that connect us and the work we do together. And all of that was reinforced in the face of human frailty and loss that came to many of us and left some people severely devastated. So we come together now with an even sharper recognition and appreciation for the stakes of the conversation and the need for us to continue work understanding our system. But the frame of crisis doesn't quite capture the whole picture, because money and the claim, the need to claim it as a democratic medium, as a just medium, that challenge is constant. It's not a question of crises. So we've come here because current understanding and approaches to money, and I use the term widely to mean the monetary architecture, and as in the plenary we just heard, current understanding and approaches to money are inadequate. Our own understanding and approaches are inadequate to capture its power, its distributive effects, its centrality to our society. There's lots of theorizing about money, just a moment on this, but an enormous amount of that theorizing approaches money as a mirror of value. Whatever money is, it reflects value. Indeed, what money is doesn't matter very much. So as an eminent economist, you can ask me later who this was, asked to write Paul Graves' entry on money, hint in 2008, put it, what is universal and important is that something is chosen, not what is chosen. Money, then, in this view, has a role that is ultimately expressive of value, of substance that is elsewhere. If money is just a mirror of value, it tells us nothing about power or distribution or equality. The action is elsewhere in the real economy, as Mark Blythe would put it, things you can buy, sell, and drop on your foot. As for money, we're worried only about the mirror being distorted. And if you think about the amount of theorizing and models that use that language and explore ways to try to reduce the distortion, it's really interesting, illuminating. Remove the veil, release choice to be made more transparently about underlying matters, the matters that are somewhere else, right? Here, in my view, much of neoclassical thought and as scholars like André Orléans have shown us so persuasively. If we do that, we miss money's own dynamics, its impact, its force, mobilizing power, structuring interactions, channeling distribution and equality. So what if, rather than assuming we knew what money was, we asked what money is and how it operates? Rather than treating it as a mirror, we asked what it actually is and how that affects how it operates. If we do that, we open a very different door. When we look at money legally, historically, and doctrinally, money appears to be a credit, a form of credit. Not only that, but a credit that circulates, right? A negotiable credit. I could cite the chapter and verse here, the US statute, the Supreme Court doctrine, the historical practice. But the point is that if money is credit, then the medium matters. As any lawyer knows, credit can be designed in different ways, not to mention negotiability. And the design choices change the reality. They change the process. Put another way, the way we design a medium channels the activity we undertake in it. Just as language influences literature, scale influences music, produces music, no one would assert that what is chosen for language or scale doesn't matter to literature or to music. Just so, money, a medium with a specific and revisable design, shapes economic exchange. We cannot understand exchange unless we figure out, we cannot understand how we capture and pass around value without understanding money. Money, in other words, structures the market. So what of design and democracy? The reason we're here, if the medium matters, then its character matters. We can design a medium democratically, or we can design, we can adopt designs that are democratic, or we can adopt designs that are not democratic. If we care about democracy, then that must shape our design, influence our design. So just to give one example, in 1889, a band of impoverished farmers proposed that the federal government issue them dollars, that is, make new high-powered money, issue dollars directly to them, base money on the collateral of their crops. It was an astonishing proposal. And it held the potential to break those farmers out of debt peonage, a debt peonage that was especially deadly to them given their exclusion from the banking system. As one of the advocates put it, it was the configuration of credit. Notice he does not say property, not enclosures, not regulatory disregard, all the things that we think. He might have said, but the power of money, as he put it, that exacted from labor all that it produces except a bare subsistence. Congress rejected the proposal. Compare what would have happened if it had accepted the proposal, right? Could we have nourished, I'm not saying I know the answer here, but could we have nourished an impoverished people? fueled economic livelihoods, moved towards greater racial justice than we defaulted to, than we created in the Reconstruction by throwing people at each other's throats? How would expanding the way we created high-powered money have affected the nascent system of national banking? As many of you know, that system excluded bank charters in the South and Southwest by virtue of capital requirements, channeled money to New York City, and prohibited mortgage lending on the very resource land that farmers had to offer. What if we had redesigned banking at that moment? After all, private bank money, as we just heard again in the last plenary, inside money, as we know, produces dynamics that configure exchange, access, price, booms and busts. Those design decisions also affect our politics, our conception of the market, our economic models. If money is credit, as also if negotiability is a legal concept, then all bets are off. We're in a new territory, a legal territory. We need to understand how the fact that money has a character, a design, changes all sorts of things right down to the unit of account, right? Right up, I always start at the unit of account. Perry Maryland always is at the opposite end of the stratosphere. And all of those things are affected by the fact that money is credit. Right? It moves the unit of account from a thing to a relation, from an opaque object to a form of governance. We need to understand things like how money made by the public differs in design from credit made by private parties, how that affects our political theory, our institutional forms, our philosophies, our economics. We have to understand how it matters that credit issues selectively. And I could go on, but even our work on money as credit barely scratches the surface. Here, you all follow money all sorts of places, to financial assets and what they are, to central banks and how they operate, to how banks operate, to alternative currencies, to economic models and what they assume, to notions of human agency and how and whom they prioritize. Many thinkers have opened the door. Everyone from Aristotle to Henry Thornton, Minsky, Maynard Keynes, they opened the door, but we have an enormous territory to explore. By no means have we figured out the territory on the other side of that door, and thus the work of all of you and this conference. A last note to change the subject slightly, but I think actually just fold in an important aspect of this conference. I would appeal to you to engage with the hybrid, or as one of the students recently told me, the tribrid nature of this conference. We created this conference in the shadow of climate change, or climate crisis, I should say, an existential threat to societies here and across the globe. And in that context, it seemed that we couldn't just approach it as business as usual. And here a shout out to Nadav, Orion Peer, and to Sarah Smith. So we have the ideas, and Susan Smith, Susan implements them all. So the structure of the conference is a result. And so there is in the tribrid, as the tribrid term implies, a parallel conference happening in Hamburg. They have 90 people in person there. If even 40 of those people had traveled across the ocean, that would be 80 carbon tons, 80 carbon tons emitted. We also have virtual access that accommodates many at home instead of traveling, more than 150. I think we're probably up to 200 online registered. We have remote participation on many plenaries and panels. In many ways, and the tech people especially tried to convince me of this is a great thing, right? We have more capacity, and we'll try to figure out how to use capacity, including having some Zoom sessions after the conference. So we're looking to figure out how to use the technology to expand the capacity of our meeting. Having said that, we know that there will be gaps and glitches, and we know the structure will be unwieldy at times. So I'm here to ask your patience and support at that moment. At those moments, it's just so you know why we're doing it this way. We're really doing this in order to be more responsible about the way we're using the globe's resources. Finally, some thank yous to our sponsors. The Political Economic Research Institute at the University of Massachusetts, I think the first sponsor, to APPEAL, the Association for the Promotion of Political Economy and Law, to the LPE Project at HLS, to INET, Institute for New Economic Thinking, and to Harvard Law School. We're very grateful for the support of those entities. To the student support team who you see in t-shirts, Dan, Shanoy, Hanukkah, Pierre, Ignacio, JP, Lily, and Sam, thank you very much. They'll be invaluable, as you'll see. To the Just Money editors who have been a source of continuing work, insight, and energy. And finally to Susan Smith, who literally made the whole conference possible with her ability to see every detail and yet not lose the large picture, know every tree, she probably knows every one of you, and yet not lose the forest. She's really been the soul of this organizing effort. So with a thank you to her and to all of you. We're now going to break for about 2 minutes just to set up the next plenary. And then we'll be right back. So you may want to just stay there, but again, they'll be doing a few textings.